From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South, and I am Sani Gray. With 4 days to go until Brazil's crucial general election, the candidates are making their final bid to win support. A series of polls commissioned by the mainstream media show the Workers' Party presidential hopeful Fernando Haddad clearly in second place on around 21%. That puts him clearly ahead of any of his rivals from the center-left and the center-right. But they also suggest that the far-right candidate Jair Bolsonaro has extended his lead in first place with around 31%. Campaigning in Rio de Janeiro on Tuesday, Haddad warned that the Brazilian elite is trying to bring back the far right. But he promised that if elected, he will bring back social justice with a fair tax system.
We're going to reform the tax system because the very rich in Brazil don't pay taxes. Those who pay taxes are the poor. The poor need to pay less to start consuming again, to re-stimulate the economy, and we need to compensate this by having the rich pay a bit. The more you stimulate hate, the more fascism will grow, and a substantial part of the Brazilian elite has abandoned social democracy for fascism.
The Sao Paulo Stock Exchange jumped by 3.5% in the middle of the day on Tuesday. That apparently reflected satisfaction among Brazilian businesses as Bolsonaro's rise in the polls, in spite of the former military officer's anti-establishment rhetoric. They apparently see him continuing with pro-market economic policies. Meanwhile, Lula da Silva has sent a public letter to the Brazilian people, encouraging them to go to the polls this Sunday. Lula says voters can choose between equality and social justice by voting for Haddad, or inequality and benefits for the wealthy if they elect Bolsonaro. The former president also says the Workers' Party is the only one that can guarantee democracy. The center-left candidate Ciro Gomes of the Democratic Labour Party has visited the General Motors factory in Sao Paulo to draw attention to the automotive industry. Gomes, a former governor and finance minister, is currently third in the polls. He has worked to position himself as a moderate alternative between right-wing Bolsonaro and Workers' Party candidate Fernando Haddad.
They have to enter into a process of boosting the industry because this is the industry that pays the best salaries, that collects the highest taxes, so we can say where the money goes to improve safety, education, people's health. 80% of the value of a car assembled here comes from abroad because we haven't created an industry policy that encourages vertical manufacturing here.
Another of the presidential candidates now vying for third place in the polls is Marina Silva. She's running for office for the third time. Now, Silva was environmental minister with Lula da Silva and is now the head of the Redist party.
Marina Silva, environmentalist, pedagogue, and former senator and minister of environment. Along with former president Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, is one of the main figures in Brazil. She was born in a village in the state of Acre, hit by rubber extraction, malaria, illiteracy, and social inequality. She is running again with the party she founded, the Ecologist Sustainability Network.
I like Marina, but I don't think she has a chance to win. But I like her proposals.
I think Marina is fake. She just pretends. I don't believe any of the candidates.
Marina Silva became a presidential candidate in 2014 after candidate Eduardo Campos died. However, Silva's conservative views regarding gender, sexuality, and religion determined her defeat. Silva wants to improve education, healthcare, and the prison system. She also wants to support the small and medium entrepreneurs. But Marina Silva also wants to push for a pension reform boosted by current President Michel Temer that failed to make it pass in Congress.
Yes, we will pass the pensions reform to fight our deficit, but we need to fight against privilege. The current government only talked to businessmen instead of talking to workers and experts as well.
Silva's alliance in 2014 with the Itaú Bank and her support to Lula's imprisonment and Rousseff's impeachment marked the distance between her and the Brazilian left wing.
Silva's program is deeply linked with international capital through NGOs that have different interests, such as the use of Amazonian region for international research. We criticize these links. Silva has among her supporters big companies and even a Brazilian bank. What they want is privatization. This proves the lack of social commitment she has.
Polarization leaves Silva with little chance to pass to the second runoff, but polls have the last word.
The influential Sao Paulo State Federation of Industries, FtS, the largest in Brazil, has reacted to U.S. President Donald Trump's criticism of U.S.-Brazil trade relations and his comments on Sunday's presidential elections.
From what the opinion polls show, it will be very polarized. Without a doubt, we will have a country divided in the middle right after the elections. And it is up to us to build bridges between these two extremes, because Brazil needs to recover from this crisis.
After over 100 hours of talks between unions and the government of Costa Rica, there's still no solution to put an end to the strike against tax reform. Our correspondent, Fernando Francia, brings us more from the capital.
The indefinite general strike continues in Costa Rica after the failed negotiations. Protest will continue on the streets, and meanwhile, the government has tried to repress it, as we saw it in the first day of demonstrations. There have been road blockades and activities set up in order to spread information throughout the country. In the Legislative Assembly, the tax plan continues to be discussed, and some proposals were rejected that would have allowed to remove inequalities. There will be 2 sessions for this. The situation is constantly developing here in Costa Rica.
Mexico has been paying tribute to the victims of the Tlatelolco massacre. 50 years ago, Mexican troops opened fire on student demonstrators, killing hundreds. A group of artists staged a memorial to commemorate the victims. They traced the country's silhouette and placed a series of objects that remained where people tried to flee the attack. At the time, the government said 20 people died, but independent reports say that at least 500 people were killed that day.
We are here for the installation of the memorial, a scream of hope and rebellion, which is a tribute to the comrades and fallen comrades of the October 2nd massacre, perpetrated by the genocidal regime of Gustavo Díaz Ordaz.
President-elect Andrés Manuel López Obrador has also paid tribute to victims, and he promised that he will not suppress popular movements. Last week, a government commission recognized the Tlatelolco massacre as a crime of state. Now, victims urge the authorities for justice to be served.
I pledge my word that I will never order the armed forces, the Navy or the Army, any police corporation to repress the people of Mexico. There is not going to be any authoritarianism.
It was established that what happened here 50 years ago was genocide. However, to date, there is not a single person who committed the genocide in jail. There is not a single person who committed the genocide that has been punished for the killing of the students, of our friends of 1968 in this place.
Our correspondent Pablo Perez has more details from Mexico City.
Well, it's here in the Plaza of Tres Culturas in Tlatelolco, Mexico City, where 50 years ago there was this killing by under the orders of the then President Gustavo Díaz Ordaz that ended with the massacre of over 400 students. Member of the Comité 68, the social movement that started in the universities of Mexico City and spread all over the country. Well, historian says that movement 50 years ago was fundamental for the history of social movements here in Mexico, and that repression that forced so many students to go into hiding or to move out of Mexico City was part of the roots of some organizations such as the Zapatista Army of National Liberation. Well, 50 years ago there was the massacre, and it was until this year that the Special Victim Commission agreed that it was a state crime. It was a crime against the citizenship by their own government, and the surviving members of the Comité 68 say that it's okay that they agreed that it was a crime, but that they want the criminals to be held responsible for their acts, as there are some surviving members of the government still, and they have not been in trial since the Felipe Calderón government ended the Special Commission for Investigation of the Crimes of the Past.
We thank Pablo for that report, and we take a short break now. We'll have more news in a minute.
With developing events being presented through analysis. Our coverage transcends borders. With renowned journalist Walter Martinez.
Salud amigos, tripulantes de nuestra querida, contaminada y única nave espacial.
Dossier. Weekdays. Only on Telesur.
Y ponga usted las cámaras, señor director.
Our actions have an impact on the environment. It's our responsibility to change for the sake of our planet. Let's be part of this transition. Watch, preserve, and protect your Green Zone. Wednesdays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. Bolivia will appeal the ruling of the International Court of Justice regarding their maritime dispute with Chile. President Evo Morales says he will send a letter to the court to highlight the contradictions in its decision. The court in The Hague ruled on Monday that Chile is not obliged to negotiate sea access for Bolivia.
No se ha terminado.
It is not over even if the court has decided it will not accompany our maritime claim. It has accompanied, however, almost every nation in the world in their claims, the multilateral world. We will continue because it is our boisterous demand from the people of Bolivia. Just think about it. I'm not sure the court understands this.
Venezuela's National Constituent Assembly is discussing a framework to regulate its cryptocurrency, the petro.
Venezuela's cryptocurrency has become an international exchange currency. The petro is a tool that is expected to attract new investments to the country. According to President Nicolás Maduro, it will be key for the country's economic recovery.
October 1st, 2018 is a historic date for Venezuela. A new technology has been born. Our own technology, our own effort in a free and independent country. Our own oil-backed cryptocurrency, the petro, has been born. Welcome, Petro. You're aimed at strengthening our economic recovery program.
The National Constituent Assembly's Economic Commission has presented a bill to regulate the cryptocurrency market. The aim is fighting the economic war Venezuela is suffering.
This bill approaches a series of concepts, such as blockchain and crypto actives. It also proposes the creation of a superintendent to regulate cryptocurrency circulation in the country, to establish the exchange mechanism and how the operation should be taken. So this bill is a revolution for the finances of the country, and it gives us currency sovereignty. We believe it is a main contribution for the economic recovery program that wants to grow and prosperity.
Venezuelans support the economic recovery program, whose main key is the digital currency. Experts say cryptocurrencies are the way to recover economic independence.
The goal of this currency for Venezuela is to be able to use it in the foreign market, so both the state and private businessmen are able to trade globally, to sell and buy with petros. For instance, in the oil market, in the area called Petrocaribe, that's the proper place to start using petro to replace dollars as exchange currency.
Venezuela is set to increase its investments and international purchase throughout its cryptocurrency, the petro. It will be negotiated through 6 international houses for the exchange of digital currencies. On October 29, Venezuela will also hold a meeting for cryptocurrency experts.
Another 95 Venezuelans living in Peru have flown back to their country thanks to the Return to the Homeland program.
Everything is ready for Kenny, Rebecca, and their 2 children. They are looking forward to their return to Venezuela, a country they left 11 months ago, searching for a dream that in reality didn't exist.
I'm excited and relaxed since we are coming back home. We are going to be with our family after so long.
95 Venezuelans are taking the 5th flight of the Return of the Homeland program from Lima to Caracas. All of them have stories of good and bad experiences. They are positive that in Venezuela, they will find the opportunities they couldn't get in Peru.
This is my homeland. I won't suffer any kind of discrimination there. I'm 58 years old, but I'm still able to work.
In Venezuela, they will get the benefits of the Bolivarian Revolution, education and healthcare, something very expensive in Peru. That's what Marlon says. He suffers from brain tumor.
In Venezuela, we're used to working 8 hours, maximum 10. Here we have to work 14 to 15 hours, and that affects my health. I came here to get better, and it was the opposite.
Some women say they have been victims of sexual harassment and prostitution.
I was not able to get a job here. I survived selling stuff at the streets. You don't get a proper job offer here. The only ones I got was for prostitution.
This will not be the last flight from Peru. Over 2,000 Venezuelan families have applied for the Bolivarian government's program to return home and leave the poor situation they are dealing with.
This Wednesday, one of Chile's top priests is due to appear in court. Cardinal Ricardo Ezzati, the Archbishop of Santiago, is accused of covering up sexual abuse by the clergy. Now, this comes as Chile's Catholic Church withdrew a controversial manual giving advice to priests on how to behave with children. The text was aimed at preventing more cases of sexual abuse within the church, and it spoke about inappropriate behavior such as kissing on the mouth, slapping bottoms, or touching genitals of children. The Archbishop of Santiago has apologized. And a historic sentence in Chile is forcing a company to return land to an indigenous community. The forest company Bosques Arauco must restore 97 hectares of land to the Mapuche community of Ignacio Huilipan. According to the judge, the company occupied more land than it had been granted. The lawyer of Ecuador's former Vice President Jorge Glass has visited him in prison 1 year since his detention. The former Vice President was condemned to 6 years for illicit association related to the Odebrecht corruption case in Ecuador. Glass's lawyer considers him a victim of political persecution. He also says his fundamental rights have been violated because no illicit funds have been found till today. The International Convention on Land Management and Urbanism has been held in Cuba. The Minister of Habitat and Housing of Venezuela, Ildemaro Villarruel, has also attended. The event was held at the Convention Palace of Havana. The Venezuelan minister said the convention would demonstrate to the nations of the world the great advances of housing in Venezuela, of the Housing Venezuela mission. He also said that in his country, there's a new urban agenda that shows the South American nation as a leader in delivering the right to housing.
Venezuela is a leader in the area of housing, and we demonstrate with great humility what we have achieved with our commander Hugo Chavez and his leadership, and Nicolas Maduro, who is driving us to victory. Today we held an exhibition of the qualitative and quantitative characterization of the great housing mission in Venezuela.
Time for another break. More news after this.
The ruling world order has always subjugated the masses. But who are the actors behind every move? What are their real interests? We analyze every move on Critical Move. Weekdays, only on Telesur.
Cameroon will vote in presidential elections on the 7th of October, with the president Paul Biya seeking another term after 36 years in power. 8 candidates are challenging the incumbent Biya in a country where opposition is largely fractured. The bilingual Central African country faces an escalating Anglophone separatist crisis. Safety at the polls is just one of the challenges voters will face as part of this coming election.
Cameroonians are killing each other. Cameroonians are shooting on each other. Cameroonians will not be duped. They know, and you know it too, that the state is going from bad to worse.
Cameroonians want change, and we're not mistaken. We believe the 7th of October, Cameroonians will meet the expectation of the whole world to say we need to turn the page, and we must finally go forward.
5 days after a powerful earthquake and tsunami hit Sulawesi, Indonesia, hopes are fading for finding more survivors. The death toll has risen to more than 1,400. According to aid agencies, more than 200,000 people are in urgent need of food and medical care. We are now joined live on the phone by Iris Van Den. She is the spokesperson for the International Federation of the Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies in Sulawesi, Indonesia. She's in Palu, the city worst hit by the earthquake and the tsunami. Hello, Iris, are you hearing me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. Now tell me, we said that you're in Palu. What are you seeing there and what do people urgently need?
Yes, we're focusing right now on search and rescue in 3 areas: City, Donggala, and Palu. And besides that, we're busy with distributing water to the affected people, and also with basic medical care. You can imagine that a lot of people are wounded because of the tsunami and because of the earthquakes, and besides that, people are living on the outside in the tents underneath tarpaulins. So the living circumstances are not very good, and people get sick. Mothers and children, for example, who suffer from diarrhea, and there's also a lack of baby food right now. So that's a concern as well.
Now, Iris, people have been asking how they can donate to the cause. Can we have a little information about that? Because the news of the devastation is very concerning to a lot of us who are not in the affected area. And people want to know how they can support your relief efforts.
Yes. Well, the Red Cross and Red Crescent has an appeal released for 22 million Swiss franc for Sulawesi and Lombok. And through the national societies of the Red Cross in your country, you can help supporting the help of the Red Cross here. What we do now is distribute all kinds of, for now we distribute water, but we're bringing in relief items for the people over here because everyone is in need of literally everything. So yeah, it's needed. And today I talked with someone in an area where all houses were just disappeared because of the earthquake. His house went down in a sinkhole, and he couldn't find his house anymore. And you can't imagine what it must be like if you are if your house disappears like that.
Now, Iris, the Red Cross is there, but have other international aid agencies arrived? And how is the local government dealing with this level of devastation?
I'm not sure if I heard your question, but I think you asked about the access to areas, and that's still very difficult. Today we went to Sigi. It's an area which is very hard to reach. There are trees on the road. There are a lot of cuts, and you cannot go any further. So we cannot reach certain areas yet, even with our ambulance.
Now, Iris, you are based in Palu. You are there. We're seeing horrible pictures of devastation. Is there still, at this point, hope of finding more survivors?
I'm afraid I did not hear your question very well, but I've heard the word survivors. The search and rescue...
Let me repeat my question. I'm just asking, at this point, is there still any hope of finding more survivors in Palu?
Yes. Well, of course, you are still hoping that you will find people who are still alive. But the last few days, the teams of the Red Cross only found bodies of people who already died, unfortunately. But it's still very very important to do this work and make sure that you find everyone.
Iris, thank you so much for chatting with us. We really appreciate the work that you're doing there in Indonesia, and we really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. We've been speaking to Iris Van Dent of the Red Cross, and we've come to the end of this news brief. For these and many other stories, you can find them on our website at talisyourtv.net/English. And you can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Talis Your English, I'm Soini Gray. Thank you so much for watching.